Pointers. Concepts in computer science that everyone and their grandma knows. So what exactly are they? Well, in this video, we're going to be looking at what pointers are and how they are used. Now, looking at this example, we can clearly see a variable named human of type human is getting assigned to a new human constructor. And then we pass in some values to this constructor. But what is actually happening when we type in new? And what are these values we're passing into this constructor? What is it doing and how does it work? Well, first, let's look at the constructor. We know it's a function that takes in some values, but what actually happens? Now, when you're creating an object in Java, I want you to think of yourself as a client that wants something done or created. You tell the constructor some requirements, and then the constructor then needs to build whatever your requirements were, because that's essentially how the constructor works. Okay, now let's look at the new keyword. So now we know that the constructor takes in all the information and data, or requirements in this case, that we need from our object, and then goes to create our object. But where is that object actually being stored? In the easiest sense, think about it like this. Every single time you type in the new keyword, an object in memory is being created. And just like everything else in memory, all these objects have an address. Now that we have all these pieces of information, let's step back. We know that every single time we create a variable, that variable has a memory address. We know that when we type in the new keyword, an object is being created, being stored in somewhere in memory and has its own memory address. And we know that we're assigning that new object to that variable. But that doesn't answer a question. What is a pointer? And the simple answer is, a pointer is just a variable that has the memory address of another object in memory as its value in memory. And it doesn't have to be an object. It can also be a variable pointing to another object. Now, what do I mean? Let's go back to the idea of us creating a new object known as human. And we know that this human variable is pointing to some object in memory. And we also have another variable called human too that is pointing to human. So what does this mean? Now again, the same concept still applies. We still have another variable having the memory address of another variable in memory. So essentially what is happening right here is that variable 2 has a copy of the reference that variable 1 had to that object as a value in its memory address. So essentially a pointer is just a variable that contains the memory address of something in memory as its value in memory.